Interstellar in 1570 IMAX is the reason I go to the movies. There's so much I want to say about this film in 1570, but I want to start first with the picture. I want to start with the color. It is breathtaking. Interstellar on 1570 is the most gorgeous film I've ever seen. I remember seeing this film back in 2014. That first viewing, I think like a lot of people when you see Nolan the first time in 1570, it's overwhelming. So seeing it again, 10 years later, I don't know if I actually appreciated it at the time. McConaughey's face in the barn is sometimes completely covered in darkness, completely shrouded in shadow. It is breathtaking. I don't think I knew what I was seeing the first time I saw it in 1570, and when I watched it tonight, I saw that true film image that I had seen 10 years ago. It's absolutely beautiful. I think my eyes kept getting dry because I don't know if I was blinking. I just kept my eyes open as wide as possible because the image is so striking. What did that image make me feel? Well, when we were on Earth initially, it was very dark. You truly feel as if you are in a science museum watching a space documentary at moments of this film. The way the camera moves, you feel as if they put a camera in space. It is absolutely momentous. I think I noticed something interesting about the way the film is color graded as well. And maybe this is film school rudimentary and I'll get ripped up, but in the beginning of the movie, it's completely dark. Earth is dying and it's difficult to see. There's not a bright light coming from anywhere. Everything is not just dusty, but it is darker and gloomy. Earth is shot dark, and now I know it was shot that way on purpose. When we get to space, there's a very high contrast. Big blacks and bright whites. A great example of this would be Gargantua, that's made of darkness and lightness together. We witness this visualization of a black hole through color and the lack of color. And so I think it's interesting that when finally Cooper wakes up on Cooper Station, the scenes are lit just absolutely normally, and now it's they're safe, so it's this just kind of normal lighting, and it's interesting, and it's not something that I ever noticed before, and it's not something that I ever noticed on home release, but I feel like rewatching this film for the millionth time now, but seeing it with my eyes open, seeing it on this gigantic screen, I noticed all these little details that I had never noticed before. I want to talk about the audio mix. I do remember that the audio mix was quite loud the first time I saw Interstellar in 1570 back in 2014. It was absolutely booming. I mean, I loved it. It was exciting. It was like being on a rocket ship. But sometimes it was difficult to hear the dialogue, and I'm into that because it kind of goes with the feel, right? You're on this ride, it's loud, you don't know what's going on. I'm fine with that. There are scenes where it gets a little difficult. In the beginning of the movie, when Coop and Murph and Timothée Chalamet are chasing the Indian drone, it gets really loud and it can be a little difficult to hear Coop and Murph going back and forth about pointing the radar gun at the Indian drone. I'm pretty sure I could hear it perfectly, but I also know the dialogue, so most scenes really were perfect. And I do think that they went back and they might have spent some time on the audio mix because Hans Zimmer's score and the dialogue were immaculate. I feel like I was watching the best possible, of course I was watching the best possible version of this, right? This is 1570, Chris Nolan, Interstellar. Yeah, of course, but you also realize it when you're watching it. And if any of you listening were at your own screenings, because it was playing nationwide, I think possibly globally, but definitely nationwide at all the 1570 IMAXs. So I know a bunch of you guys saw it. And here's the thing, if you saw it, you knew you were watching something special. You're seeing like this physical thing. It's like listening to a record, but times a million. It's a beautiful thing, and I love seeing the hairs on the screen, the little grains, the scratches. I mean, we're watching a 10-year-old print, and I'm sure they did a little something to spruce it up, and I do think that they messed with the audio a little bit to make it a little bit better, and I'm fine with that. It was absolutely delightful. This was a pristine screening, and I am honored to have been there. I think that they should play Interstellar at museums daily. This is a treasure, and people should be allowed to watch this. They should make it free, and it should be at museums because it is awesome. It is just absolutely spectacular. And it's gonna make kids want to be astronauts again. I mean, people need to watch this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, I don't think you've made it this far into the video, right? But oh man, it is awesome. So anyway, I think the casting of Jessica Chasten and Makenzie Foy as Murph, spot on. They really feel like they could be the same person. It's interesting because Casey Affleck and Timothée Chalamet, they really do look like the same person. That's great casting. Casey Affleck is always awesome. I'll note also Ellen Bernstein as the 112-year-old Murph is also an excellent casting choice. I always loved her in Requiem for a Dream. I mean, she's an incredible actress, and I think the three of them, Ellen Bernstein, Makenzie Foy, and Jessica Chasten, they really bring Murph's character to life. I want to talk about some funny moments. It is really fun to watch Timothée Chalamet be just like a young kid in the movie. It's awesome, and I think he's got some banger lines. Everybody loves it when he says,
what about the flat tire?
It's great. Now, I want to talk a little bit about why Interstellar is so special to me. And so if you don't care, you can skip ahead, but this is like the dad stuff now. When I first saw Interstellar in 2014, I was a different person. Me and my wife were married for about a year, and I was just stoked to see a new Christopher Nolan movie, and I loved it, and I watched it a million times, and okay, cool. But I'm a father now, and I have a daughter. This movie consistently messes me up, and it's the quandary of, could you leave your family to save your family? There's an interview that came out recently with Matthew McConaughey where he talks about this exact same quandary, and he doesn't believe that he would actually have been willing to leave his family, but he goes back and forth with it, and I think that's the thing that we all do. When I watch this film, Coop leaving his daughter, it breaks me up. I think a lot of dads, if you have a girl, you look at them the way that McConaughey looks at Murph. I look at Murph, I see my daughter, I see this smart rebel, and I don't want him to go. I want him to stay. It's crazy how, as a father, you watch this movie, you watch these scenes, and it hits you in an absolutely different way, because you think, would I be able to do this? And when Cooper later is in the Tesseract and he's slamming against the books, it hits differently. It really is a special movie. And there are people who say Christopher Nolan is devoid of emotion and his films are all mathematics, and that's just absolutely not true. Interstellar is an emotional masterpiece. Interstellar tells the story of humanity moving forward. It really can be seen as a companion piece to Stanley Kubrick's 2001. This is the evolution of man, where the Star Child was a metaphor. I mean, some people think that it was the evolution and this giant baby is gonna go be Superman now, but I think that it was a metaphor, right? This is the next stage in human evolution, and so it is being birthed, right? That's why it's like embryonic. Okay, so Interstellar is telling the story of how humanity moves forward. Now, obviously, they have moved forward because we learn that it's not aliens that created the wormhole and the Tesseract, right? It's humans in the future who are multidimensional, right? It could be thousands or millions of years in the future, but obviously humanity survives and is able to then go and save itself through this manipulation of space-time through gravity, and of course the manipulation of love, right? They need the family to create this kind of supernatural connection through the dimensions and through space-time, right? Truly, that's what happens in the film. Now, here's a question that I never asked until recently, and that's, which group of humans created the Tesseract? Plan A or Plan B? I never thought of that before, right? Now, of course, there is the possibility that Plan A and Plan B communicate. Cooper Station is orbiting Saturn, and the wormhole is also orbiting Saturn. So I think the point is that Cooper Station is at Saturn because that's obviously an important waypoint in humanity's ability to move through space, because they can access the other galaxy there, right? So now humans have access to the other galaxy. So the question is, are the humans who live on Cooper Station and obviously other space stations, because Murph has to come from a different space station. She's in cryosleep in a different space station, right? She travels a few weeks so that she can meet Cooper, right? For one last time, so they can have that moment together, finally see each other again. But my question is, are these two groups communicating via the wormhole? And I don't know. So we could have a completely different sect of humanity in that other galaxy, in Murph's planet or Edmund's planet, right? So you can imagine in an imaginary sequel, in Interstellar 2, that doesn't exist, Coop, Dr. Brand, and Plan B, they have the colony, right? They are doing their thing. So the question is it that group of people that become multidimensional in a million years? Or is humanity now a multi-galaxy species that communicates, and now they go on? I think that's probably what it is, but I want to know. Anyway, the score is amazing. Hans Zimmer, I really like Ludwig Göransson. And Ludwig Göransson's been working with Nolan now for 2 movies in a row. He did Tenet and he did Oppenheimer. And I gotta say, I mean, that's very interesting because Tenet is kind of house music, EDM. It's weird. It's very mechanical. It's very computer generated. Tenet is a very different kind of score than Oppenheimer, which is, you know, mostly based on the violin and very orchestral. It's the same guy. And so it's cool, but you know, man, I miss Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer's been doing some amazing work in the Dune franchise with Denis Villeneuve, but man, I want to see him get back with Chris. I think they work well together, and so I would love to see him again. I think it'd be very interesting if Hans Zimmer was announced to be the composer on Nolan's next movie. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, I do hope that they work together again. Can I just talk about the picture one more time? The blues on this 1570 are just so gorgeous. There's this scene in the very beginning of the movie, right after Coop's woken up from his dream. He talks to Murph, but then he looks out the window and the music swells. It's an amazing moment in the movie, but the blues of the horizon and the mountains in the background, I mean, this is the best way to see this movie. I hope they re-release this film every couple of years. You know, even if it's only every 10 years, I'll be there. And I hope you got the opportunity to see this movie. If you didn't, I hope you enjoyed listening to me gush about it. I could probably go on and on and on and on, but Interstellar in 1570mm IMAX was just an absolute delight. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really helps out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm trying to get to 1,000. I would super appreciate that. You know, I got a couple other videos talking about 1570 IMAX if you want to check out my Joker video. And even though I got to see it in 1570, it really didn't do much to save the film. It's just such a bad movie, but we all know it was a bad movie, right? I do a couple of reviews recently of The Penguin, and I talk about Dune. I do a bunch of videos on Chris Nolan. Really, I'm just talking about stuff I think is cool. If you think it's cool, check them out, hang out with me, and I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks so much. Check out whichever video you want. This was Film School Dad.